Okay, it's 5:45. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Couple of quick things. I think probably everybody's aware, a lot of information has been out there that we have a board member that needs to leave promptly at 6:15 tonight. We won't go past that. So I ask please for respect from the audience so that we can have our conversations and do what we need to do without some delays. So with that, Ms. Mello requested this meeting. Since I've been chair, I feel to honor all requests for meetings. So that's not changing tonight. This was the only day that we could meet. So I'm going to turn it over to Melanie and she can let us know why we're here tonight.
Thank you. After the last meeting, I didn't think that I had a chance to say really what I wanted to say because of the disruptions of the meeting. I wanted to vote mask optional, but I was not part of the school board in September when we adopted masks. But I do remember that meeting. There was a draft document, a matrix that was available even for the public to review. At the last meeting, we didn't have policy or procedure, anything tangible for me to look at. So that was the reason that I could not vote in the affirmative for mask optional at the last meeting. So I emailed the superintendent and the other school board members to explain why I couldn't do it that night and asked if we could come up with something in writing, a one-page thing that the administration and the school nurses could stand behind. Then I'd like to call a special meeting so that we could get this done before school vacation, which is why we are here tonight. And then I guess we can take the meeting back.
Okay, thank you. Patty did draft a document with the administration and with the nurses. I've looked that over. I think many of you have looked that over. It does give some more clarity to the situation. I guess I will turn it over to Patty if she wants to go give a quick 5,000-foot view of that document.
Sure. So I think it's, as the board asked, we posted this with the packet, the board packet when it was ready. So the public's also had a chance to review the document. So we met with the school nurses administration. We reviewed the CDC guidelines, DHHS guidelines, the new guidelines that were released on February 7th. And we tried to, as the board asked, put a draft in place that would show when we might go to targeted masking. And in the DHHS guidelines, they specifically mention clusters and outbreaks and that they would be happy to consult with us. And if we have questions about that, and we felt that they would be the best agency to work with our school nurses to make those decisions. So if the cluster is identified, then we would target masks in those circumstances, depending on, again, the schools vary. It's easy to target in one elementary classroom. It's not as easy when you have a middle school that's entire grade levels are mixed, and then it's even harder at the high school when students are all over the place, mixed in the school. So we came up with a one-page document. We also kept students returning after 5 days, wearing a mask until day 10, because that was the guidance at the time when this document was developed. Is there any questions if you have them?
Awesome, thank you. So the other thing to point out, if anybody's not aware, there's late breaking news as of 2 hours ago. The governor has made a statement and the Department of Education has released some new guidance that effectively says in their legal opinion that masks are not required and not recommended for there in indoor spaces anymore in New Hampshire. And the DOE has released the technical advisory with some legal references that in their opinion, that means that mask mandates in school at this point are no longer allowed under education law. So I believe it does say in some of the material that was released from the governor's office that policy should be updated as quickly as possible to adhere to that. It's my opinion, and we'll go around the room and see if folks agree that the document that Patty and the administration came up with lays out an outline for that. As is the case many times when things are released from state government or the DOE, there are some questions. It doesn't specifically say targeted masking for clusters. What's like what is in this document is still in play. So I think the conversation tonight should be around this document, and if it's acceptable for as our starting point going forward, knowing that if we do adopt it, it could certainly be changed. It's going to be sort of fluid based on the information that we receive from the DOE going forward. So with that, I think I'll go around the board like I did last time, open it up for comments or discussion points, please. Again, try to keep time in mind. But I'll start to my left again. Gene, if you've got thoughts, go ahead.
I guess the question moving forward, isn't mask optional any longer. It is how this policy that we're looking at today will hold up. And again, late breaking news. We don't have all the details yet, so this right here could be, okay, or it could be out the window. That's, I guess, what is my only question. So, I mean, I'm fine with it as it reads here. The other part of the equation is that it was yesterday or the day before that the State Department of Education also ended any remote options unless requested by a parent. Therefore, if we have to close because of an outbreak, those days have to be made up. So something to think about. I think this is good to try to avoid those situations where, having to close school because of an outbreak, this policy would work effectively. We've made it through the whole year without having to do it with, a mask mandate in place. So I don't think it would hurt to adopt this policy until such a time someone may tell us that it's not okay.
Okay. Amy?
Thanks, Andy. I'll start by just noting that I'm pretty sure I'm going to be voting the minority tonight. And so I'll share my thoughts anyway, because I respect my board mates' opinions and I know you guys will listen to them, and I respect your opinions and I'm listening to what you guys have to say tonight. I think that this technical advisory regarding face coverings in schools, as well as the governor's announcement today, as well as the proposed Pembroke School District revised COVID plan, February 22nd, 2022, is out of step with the national guidance that is currently in place and the forthcoming guidance that is anticipated to be coming from the CDC, which the CDC has previewed is going to be taking into consideration things like hospitalization rates and other factors that are not accounted for in anything that the board is considering tonight. Also, I'm concerned about the very late-breaking nature of the governor's announcement and the technical advisory and the lack of this board to have time to consider that. The so-called guidance that the governor referenced isn't even available. I was racing this afternoon to try to get it and read it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I don't agree with adopting the policy tonight, and that's my thinking overall.
Great. Thank you. Melanie?
I agree with Jean. It may be okay. Maybe we'll be told in a couple of weeks that it's not okay. But if you read the document, it clearly says that if there's an outbreak or a cluster, that the school nurses are going to work with DHHS and follow their guidance if there's an outbreak. So I think that covers it. If we have an outbreak, hopefully this is over. We're not going to have an outbreak. But if we did, and they said, okay, this grade needs to mask, I mean, that's coming from DHHS. So I feel like our document is covering that basis. So I'm okay with it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree with Melanie that it kind of covers our bases. I also, I've been a proponent, and I think most people on the board have been proponents thus far of following DHHS guidance along with CDC and AAP guidance. So that guidance has changed. So I think to Amy's point, you know, it is late breaking information. All the information is not available. I would honestly probably be most comfortable with a motion that almost spells out like we are going to adopt this up until the point that further guidance is available from DHHS. I'd be comfortable with that. That could be Monday. It could be, you know, June, the way we've seen these things go in the past. So I think from my point of view, it's prudent to adopt something so that we have a guidance document for our nurses to fall back on until told, you know, what to do by the state. But at that point, obviously, the state's new guidance would take effect. So that's kind of where I'm at. Is there anything, I'll open it up real quick to the principals. I know we asked you to come tonight in case we had questions. The situation's kind of changed. Is there anything that you guys want to ask us or put out there? I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you've got anything that you want to contribute, feel free. Okay, any other board comments? Okay, does anybody want to make a motion then?
I'll do it.
I'd like to,
Should I revisit or should I just make a new motion?
okay. So I'd like to make a motion that effective immediately, masks in all Pembroke schools and all Pembroke grounds are optional. And also to include the Pembroke School District provides COVID plan dated February 22nd, 2022. To stay in effect until otherwise superseded by new information coming from DHHS or the CDC.
Andy, you good on that? Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, one more chance for discussion.
So if, I'm just a little bit confused by the motion because the current guidance from the CDC is universal masking for substantial community spread. And it's rumored that the forthcoming CDC guidance is not going to address or change the CDC guidance for schools. So I didn't think, Jean, that you wanted to, that your motion intended to go back to
No.
required masking if the CDC guidance that's forthcoming does not change the school masking guidance. So I was a little bit surprised that you threw CDC in at the end.
Well, it's sitting here in front of my face, so when I was making the motion.
I'd like to remove the CDC portion from my,
Please, the second.
I'll still second it.
Okay, any other discussion then? Okay, then I'm gonna paraphrase because I can't remember that whole thing either. All in favor of the motion to make masks optional from the school district as well as adopting the document that was provided by administration until such time as superseding documentation becomes available from the state of New Hampshire. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I,
Any extensions? Right. So that piece of business is done. Is there anything else that anybody would like to address? We've got just a couple of minutes.
I wanted to make a statement, Andy, and make a request to you.
Sure.
All right, so I prepared a statement, so I'm just going to read it. During the February 15th Pembroke School Board meeting, members of the public exhibited behavior that included yelling, screaming, and swearing at the board while the board attempted to conduct its business. This behavior included name calling and personally insulting the board, including that I and our other board members are engaging in child abuse, drunk with power, acting only out of political considerations, are laughing stock, lying to the public, digging our own graves, a joke, should be ashamed of ourselves, and more. Of course, Any member of the public can voice their concerns, opinion, and questions during public comments at public meetings, over email, through phone calls, and through letters. And we definitely do not all have to have the same opinions and beliefs. But civil discourse should be civil. The behavior exhibited last meeting is not appropriate during public meetings and prevents the functionality of democratic processes. Accordingly, I respectfully request that if behavior like that recurs, that the chair immediately adjourn that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that board rules dictate that I need a motion, but I would certainly say that I'm on board with that, and that any time that anybody feels that a meeting is out of hand, they're more than welcome to make a motion to adjourn. I will second, I think that's entirely appropriate. I apologize if you guys think I should have done that earlier last time. I know that we were all subjected to stuff that you should not have done. Now, as chair, I'll take ownership of that. But yeah, going forward, if anybody feels that something's out of control, make a motion and seconded. What we need to do.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor of adjournment at 6:01?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.